Okay, everybody. Good afternoon to those of you joining from Europe, and good morning to those of you joining from the US and from Canada. Thank you for joining, first of all, and welcome to our user group session on Live Maps v10.2 and our new management pack. I'm Luke O'Keefe, Customer Success Manager, and I have the pleasure of introducing Chris Millay, our Support Manager, who will be presenting today. If you do have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or type your question in the chat as we go, and Chris will answer when he gets a chance. Chris, over to you.
Thank you very much. We also have one other person with us, and that is Svi. He's one of our developers, and he is actually the author of the new management pack. We'll describe that and talk about that a little bit later. It's going to be a community management pack that basically everyone can download and play with, whether you're an actual Live Maps customer or not. Just being able to use it, I think you'll find that the functionality of it is pretty good. I'm already starting to enjoy parts of it. So with that being said, let's just go ahead and continue. Just like anything else, if you want to, we'll go through this whole session. If you've got any questions or anything like that, you can raise your hand and ask the questions. If you want, we can unmute you and allow you to speak and ask questions when we get to the question and answer period. Or you could just type it in the question and answer chat window and we'll go from there. All right, so the agenda of the day. Not a heavy topic today as far as training of much, but we do want to kind of cover what was released in the 10.2 release. Just to give you a kind of a quick overview for those, there's a little bit of a CSS refresh. For those who have already deployed it, have noticed that there's some brighter colors in certain areas. Some of the blue bars are gone. I just want to kind of cover some of the changes that were there. We made a couple changes in the heat map. The biggest change comes to our services overview, bringing it over into the Angular side. The service map itself is also on the Angular side. We've got a couple things that I want to talk about in our summary dashboards that we've added. Some of these things that you guys have been asking for, so it might be nice for you to see it. And then the Health Explorer has also been moved over to the Angular side, and there's some differences there that I want to kind of cover, things that I think you'll find helpful in that aspect. And then, of course, we'll cover the new management pack. Basically, it's for monitoring a SQL query. We just want to kind of cover it real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time with it. It's not a sales pitch, but we do want to talk about Martello technologies. Technically, Civision has merged with Martello, and so I kind of want to cover a little bit of that. You may have been told it, may have noticed it, may have seen it. We just kind of want to explain how things are going with us and how things are moving forward and what that may bring to you. And then, of course, I also want to talk about a new support tool on our side that you'll know about, and we'll get into question and answer. So we have a lot of stuff to cover. Hopefully we'll do okay on that and not spend more than the hour that we've allotted. But if we do, we do. So we'll go from there. All right. So now, lab time. This is Live Maps version 10.2.2 technically. If you have recently downloaded 10.2, you probably downloaded 10.2.0. Over the last basically month, we've gone through a couple different bug fixes and small changes that have happened over that period of time. So we kind of elected to release another 10.2.2 release. This is not currently available on the website right now, so don't rush out and try to download it. I will try to tell you some of the things that are in here that are a little different, but this will be available probably no later than Monday. Could be wrong there, but here in the next few days is really what we're expecting. So a couple things about the CSS refresh. I guess I'll cover that first. You'll notice that the blue bars at the top are gone, so it's more of a square look. We tried to give it a little bit more of a cleaner, modern look. You'll also notice that the pastel colors that we had on here, those have kind of been enriched and darkened up. So that's the basics of the CSS refresh. There's a few tweaks here and there that dealt with CSS that we're trying to make it look a little more modern, a little cleaner than what we had before. So if you upgrade from 10.1 to 10.2, you will notice a difference, and that's really what I wanted to make sure that you were aware of. Now, if you do like the bars at the top, those can be put back in. There's actually CSS that I can put back in and have a blue bar or whatever color bar back at the top. If that's something you want, then just send an email to support@civision.com, and I'll respond to you and try to get you going where you need to go. By the way, those people that are using the dark theme, there is an updated dark theme override CSS from our website. So if you go do the same kind of search for a theme on the Civision website, you'll notice there will be a new override CSS text file. If you just kind of copy and paste that and replace that in your override CSS file, then any of the new changes will basically be switched over to a darker theme. That includes some of the new stuff that we'll show you when I talk about the services overview. So I might as well go there next. Services overview. So this is a little bit of a different look. Hopefully you'll notice it right away. But we did bring this over to the newer side of the code. You have the listing out of the different services. Couple key features. Something that we didn't have before is there's now a search on the top. So if I type SCOM, I can quickly and easily narrow down to just the search services that may be affected there. If I type in test, I can see the ones that are related to that. So it takes it a moment to actually build this, especially if you got a long list of services. But once it's done, you'll actually be able to search and find services a lot faster. And hopefully that's helpful for you. Second part of this is this health right here. We've had many requests through time that they love the fact that the worst health state rolls up to the top. But others have said, yeah, that's great, but I only have so many services and I would rather these things be listed alphabetically. So you now have the ability to tell it to list alphabetically. So this way you don't have to worry about what's at the top. You can just, hey, I already know that this service is in this location, and you can tell it from a further distance away without having to read the different sections. The other one on here is the health index. For those people that are actually using the health index, that's the last tab there on the authoring console to create an index. Well, then you can have it sort that way too. So you've got a couple different options there. Health is the default one as far as being able to see it. Now, drilling into a service, I'm actually going to go into Active Directory on purpose, just because this is also different. This is also on the newer side of the code, the Angular side of the code. Should give you basically the same functionality, meaning I have my end user, my application, my infrastructure. I have my alerts down at the bottom. Big difference here because it's on the newer side of the code. If I click on an alert, I now have the same kind of pane that comes out if I was working at it from a summary dashboard. It's no longer that little modal that pops up. It's a little bit bigger to give you a little bit more definition of what's going on with the alert. The biggest changes that you'll notice will be in the middle. That's where we're looking at the service level. So we kind of changed from the little dials to actually more of a longer bar graph. Also, you may not notice this, but you'll notice the fact that there's no radial dials here on the side. This is the default view, by the way. You can turn off different SLAs if you want to look at only certain ones. You can also go back and forth in time. Now, there's actually different types of views. This one's actually called the multi-view because I'm using bar graphs and a heat map. If I want it to go straight up heat map, then I can change it for that. And then the last one is just a straight up bar graph. The nice thing about the bar graph is you basically kind of reduce the health index or the overall SLAs down to a couple small icons is really what it comes down to. So there's a little bit of a change here as far as what we look at and how we present this data. Now, when you drill down into any one of these parts, you're still going back into the older side of the code. So you'll notice kind of a little bit of a slowdown glitch when we go from transition from new side to old side, and this is the older side. You can tell the menu system is here. Just a quick note, that part I expect to be changed within the next month or so, and we'll actually have something along there where we'll actually be able to drill in and see something a little bit better on that side. So we are making these improvements. Not only are we doing our bug fixes, but we're also trying to make the overall product flow like it should. So that's kind of where we're at there. Now, services overview, the service map, the CSS refresh. Now I want to go into a couple other things on this side. So I've got where's my user group 1? All right. So a couple changes you may or may not have noticed. First, dealing with the heat maps themselves. And by the way, it's not just heat maps. If I go to entity state list, you'll notice it too. There's a little icon down here at the bottom that give you the time frame. This is actually going to give you exactly how long that that object has been in that state. So now you can see I've been in here for, in this case, 347 minutes, or in some cases it may be a much longer period of time. If it goes into days, it'll actually show days. I believe it shows weeks. I can't remember or not, but I know that it definitely goes into days. Yeah, I'll have to actually look that up. But it's we're not going to go into months though, because we don't want to confuse months and minutes together. So a little bit of a change to kind of help people out. The next big thing that you'll notice on here happens to be the bar graphs. So after going to from version 8 to version 10, one of the things that we kind of lacked there was the ability to actually show horizontal bars. So in your options, when you do a performance graph, and by the way, this is one of those changes that happened from version 10.2.0 to 10.2.2. The horizontal bars were only available in the performance graph section. This, I believe, I'm pretty sure that this is also going to be in the SQL. Yeah, it's in the SQL and the PowerShell option. So you'll be able to add these things into those section also. I've got a couple different ones on here. If I go into my views, there's actually a horizontal bar and a horizontal bar compact. And just to kind of let you see the difference here, is to try to, one obviously takes up a little bit more space. The other one is a little bit more compact in the way that it looks. Just a couple differences there. If you've got a long list of things, obviously compact makes more sense. But if it's a smaller list, then you may like the full length of the full horizontal bars. There was a little bit of discussion on our side when we went back and forth trying to figure out which way we wanted to do this, and we decided to implement both. So you actually have those options. Couple things I should talk about in this area. If I go into the options section, there's actually this horizontal max scale value, and that's this line here. When you're talking about percentages, it's really easy to say, okay, I want the max scale here to be 100%. When you start talking about available megabytes, or your range may be in the thousands or tens of thousands, then you kind of have to give it a max to figure out exactly what makes sense. The last thing you want to do is see a bunch of full bars and then see ones that are like itty bitty that you can barely see. So especially when you're talking about like free space on a disk or something along those lines, you may only care if it's down to less than 5 gigabytes or something like that, and that may be where you want your max set to. So we kind of decided to give you that option to set that max to make life easier on you. This other show time on Xaxis, I'll explain that. That was actually a feature request dealing with some of the line graphs being able to actually see the time instead of just a date on there. And if you want, I can show a little bit more on that. That doesn't actually have to relate to horizontal bars, but since it's there, I figured I'd talk about it anyway. The other kind of add-on that we brought into 10.2 is unit monitors. So we've had requests through time to actually come through and say, hey, I would like to see a set unit monitor. I don't want to see the health of a server. I have a unit monitor. I'd like to add that in there. And that's what this is doing. It's basically allowing you to grab and show just a single monitor. You can scope that to a group. I just don't have it in this one. If you scope to a group and don't add a monitor, then it'll show you all the monitors, all the unit monitors for, in the case of the servers, in that group. So that's one way to kind of divide that out, whether you want to see all of them or just some of them. There's also a few options in here as far as whether you show the path or not. If you don't show the path, then you have a tendency to see something that's a little more vague. So I wanted to point this out, that it does help to show a path in order to have the exact server or something like that it's on. That's kind of helpful there. All right, so let's go into back to home real quick. I'm actually going to come back to that page when we start talking about the new MP. So if I drill into an object and come into the normal Object Explorer, and then I, of course, go into my Health Explorer, well, we move the Health Explorer over to the newer format, the newer Angular side, and there's a bit of a change here. So you can see the normal Health Explorer. You're going to find exactly what class or what object you're here. We've changed this up a little bit to so that it doesn't have this one gigantic long scrolling section. We added some tabs in here to divide information up. Obviously, you have your change state data with whatever the information is for the change. That was there before, but it just kept scrolling down as things went on. Your knowledge base is still going to be your normal knowledge base articles. That stuff was in the original Health Explorer. The thing that's different now is the monitor details. So we are grabbing the actual details of the monitor to give you exactly what the threshold and the frequency, and so you can start to see some of the information for that specific monitor. One bit of note, okay, this is a note for 10.2. This is something that we do plan on adding more functionality to this. This threshold that you're looking at, these values, are exactly how the monitor was set up. It is not including any overrides that you put in place. So that will change. So it's partial information for some people. It's full information for others. We do plan on adding the thresholds to account for the overrides. Yeah, this is hopefully this is helpful in the way that you can see more information through the Health Explorer to see some of the details that you would like to see. You still have the ability to reset and recalculate the health states of the monitors. Those were in there originally. We just kind of moved things over a little since we put it more on the newer side. As we shift things over, we're obviously finding things that we can improve on and change the way that we were doing them before. So hopefully you find all of that helpful. All right, I think I've covered just about everything that's in the actual 10.2 or 10.2. Oh, you know what? I'll show one more thing, just because it was something that came up just before our deal here. Is that time on the x-axis? That's kind of shown up here. So the key to understand about this particular, it's a SQL query, but it's a SQL query that I'm grabbing the raw data from. I'm not doing averages, or I'm not doing a max or a min. I'm just grabbing like the last. In this case, I'm looking at the last. Well, I forgot what I was actually grabbing. Last few hours of raw data. And so it does allow me to kind of scope it down to a set amount. The problem we had before was that when I looked at this, I could only see a date. So I couldn't tell exactly what time. So that x-axis gives me the ability to see a time. And the time frame on there is always going to be typically the one of the counters that's listed first. But you still have the ability to kind of scope this down to figure out exact times of when peaks occur or something along those lines. So a slight improvement in that area to help out when you're talking about your SQL, your PowerShell type queries, or any other type of data that you want to narrow down and actually see a little bit better a time defined in there. So that is 10.2 or 10.22, either way, in what we've done and what we're moving forward. Obviously, there's other improvements in plan for 10.3. Obviously more bug fixes as they come in through support, and more of the plans to move things from the kind of version 8 code to the version 10 code as we move the different parts over. So now I wanted to talk about the new MP. It is a community MP that we're releasing. it's, well, I'll just go there. It's not available yet. It'll be available probably in a couple more weeks. There's a few little glitches that we're going through to try to solve. With that, I think I'll introduce Svi, and what I'd like to do is see if Svi would like to do a quick kind of, hey, introduce yourself a little bit, and kind of explain a little bit what it does or what its intent is, and then after that I can probably take over again and actually kind of walk through a building of one.
So yes, thank you, Chris. Hello everyone. My name is Svi, and I'm actually new in Savision as well. I just joined not a while ago, and the whole idea behind this management pack was to establish a way to monitor a query result. So it will add more power to monitor the business application layer. By saying that, this management pack includes a couple of features where you can monitor your SQL query by 2 states or 3 states, depends on what you need. It also collects the data as a performance data, so you can use it for your dashboarding purposes as well. If you have some kind of need for grouping your monitors, so you also can group those kind of monitors as in one group, and then you will get the group state. I think, Chris, you can just demonstrate what exactly you can do it. The best way to explain it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, when you import the MP, you'll have a couple more management pack templates. One will be a 2-state, and one of them will be a 3-state. I'm going to go ahead and add a 3-state in here, that being a little bit more complex, although not by much. I'm going to call this Dallas temp 2. I had a Dallas temp 1 in here, but we'll just go from there. So we just have a little demo database that's in here, and it just has some temperatures of Dallas, Ottawa, and Amsterdam in degrees Celsius. But what's nice about this is that I can come through and I can search and I can find my SQL server, tell it what database that I would like to connect to. I'm going to grab the SQL provider. And I'll do Windows authentication. You'll notice that it kind of comes up with a string automatically. I am going to cheat. You can call it what you want, and add this simple query in here and run a test. This will at least tell me what the value is that it's returning. And then the last part is how do you want this to be named as far as a performance counter metric? So in this case, I can do Dallas temp 2 just to keep things simple, and then go next. So it's not monitoring whether a result of a query is yes or no, whether it came back. It's basically allowing you to pull a result from a query, and we are looking for a single numeric value, an integer basically, from there, that we can not only pass along that the test worked, but then also leave that as a performance counter. So in the case of a 3-state, obviously I've got to say, when do I warn, when do I go to critical, greater than, less than, because I'm in Dallas, I want to be warned when it's, greater than 0 degrees Celsius. However, I don't need it to be critical unless it's somewhere, closer to 40 for me. Everyone else is like dying, going, no, are you kidding? And 40 is okay for me. It's just one of those things you get used to in Dallas. Meanwhile, those people in Ottawa, where it's like minus 18 now, I'd be freezing my tail off. So we can add these values in, go through there. You can decide how many consecutive samples before it actually an alert is generated. Your impact is, obviously critical is like, way too hot. I know I'm talking about hot, and it's still winter. You can also decide to add these to a group, an existing group. I already have one, so I'm just going to go ahead and add it into my Ottawa weather. I know that makes no sense at all, Ottawa weather, and I'm doing Dallas alerts, but that's the case maybe. And then, or I could create a new group. Being a weather geek, I'm going to play around with this a little bit more and add a bunch of different types of counters in here. I think that might be nice for me. And synchronization, how often you want it to run, every 5 minutes. I may actually lower that a couple just to see if we can get a better result here quickly. And then, let it create it. So now it'll start creating this particular monitor, and I can go through. Now I do happen to have these in here. So I did a little bit with this just prior to starting this group. So you'll notice that I have my Ottawa temperature check, is in critical because I actually did anything less than like 2 or 3. Dallas, the original one, I almost did exactly the same way I had that one. Basically, anything bigger than higher than 0, I wanted to be in a warning state, even though that would be perfectly fine for me. You get the errors. This one, the critical error, and if I pull this one out, you can get the information, and I can actually see that that it's obviously way too cold for people to live. So it says me. And then, of course, the last part is because we are gathering that information as a performance counter, I can now display it not only in the SCOM console as a counter, but then I can actually show it as a counter directly in live maps, whether it be a bar chart, a line graph. I'm actually going to put this in line graph, and so you can see. I had a small glitch that we were still working out a bug, but there for a moment. But if I want these to be in horizontal bars, so you're basically getting the results of your query as a counter and a way to alert on. That's what it's going to do.
Yeah, I can add another reason why to use this SQL Query Monitor Management Pack is that you, as an administrator, you can collaborate with the application team and to build relevant queries for them that will be relevant for them to understand if something goes wrong with the application. For example, if there are 0 open session right now because the application is collecting data about sessions or something like that. So you can create meaningful queries for the application layer as well, not just an infrastructure that we're all used to. That was the idea behind it. And this management pack, maybe you you might already familiar with that because it was published at first in the GitHub as a free community management pack. I published it a while ago, and that management pack upgraded. And this is the 3rd version of it, and you could download it in our website. It will be released, I guess, in 2 weeks from now, something around that. And if, of course, if you have any question about it, you will here and join to Subvision, so you're welcome to ask.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's continue. I think we've got the gist of that part. So just a quick recap. Obviously I went through some of the stuff with the 10.2, 10.2, 10.22 release. We talked about the new management pack, the community management pack that's going to go out there, and how we're going to deal with that. Now, we want to do a quick, I didn't actually talk about it yet, so we might as well do that now. Martello Technologies. Okay, so Subvision, was it December, I guess? December, January? Yeah, somewhere around there. We merged with Martello Technologies. and or maybe it was November. Time flies as you're having fun. So they're a group based out of Ottawa themselves. They actually had merged with another company. So there's three companies all in one now. One company called Martello Tech, one company that used to be called Elfiq, and of course Civision. And I'll kind of explain how we all fit together here. Martello Technology is a company that if you have a Mitel PBX, then they have a product called MarWatch that does a monitoring through its product called MarWatch, and it's basically what is the quality of your voice. They look for jitter, they look for things that can cause latency or problems that it goes on with your Mitel setup. So that's kind of what they do. The Elfiq side is an edge device. It is a link balancer and SD-WAN. It is basically vendor agnostic. Allows you to put a box on the outside of your firewall, in between basically your firewall and where your ISP is coming in, and allows you to, well, not only do link balancing, but set up an SD-WAN across multiple locations to connect units together. You don't have to necessarily buy or have dedicated lines through a provider or an MPLS to your different locations. And then you can also, with it being a link balancer, allows you to go and take full choice or full bandwidth that you're paying for and not have to worry about switching from one to the other. And it does it in milliseconds, basically. So that's kind of what the three of us do, and we're going through a transition as we're all learning different parts of the company, and we obviously there's plans in place to continue with upgrading and combining the different parts together in different ways. And I know that may not sound like, hey, I don't see where all those fit, but there is plans to kind of do some merging of some of the technologies in there. As far as it relates to Civision is still moving forward. It's not like we suddenly are acquired and Civision is going away, or so there's still development of IQ, there's still development of live maps, and there is for the foreseeable future. There's none of that's going to change. What you may start to see is little add-ons here and there from the different parts of Martello Tech or from Elfiq, where you may see something like a monitor or something that shows up for an Elfiq device, or integration into MarWatch to help with some of the your UC communications or something along those lines when you're dealing with a Mitel. If you deal with a Mitel PBX or something along those lines. So that's kind of where we're at and what the different parts do. Yeah, if you've got any questions or have anything else when it comes, the other part of that, I guess, is you're going to notice, and it probably is supposed to start as of tomorrow, is that you will see emails coming from us that have a martellotech.com email address. So going forward, that's going to be the email. The website, civision.com, is still going to remain. The support at civision.com, that will still remain. It's not like you have to suddenly switch. So if you send something to support at Civision, then you'll get replies there, which leads me down to the next thing, which I'm going to talk about, which is a new support tool. Obviously, all three companies used something different as far as how they handled their internal support tickets. The part of that is that all three of us have decided that we're moving to a different tool. And so in the coming weeks or months, Civision will actually be the first one to migrate over to the new tool. You probably noticed that the portal, the support.civision.com portal itself will change. You may start to see a different type of email. You may see a different look and feel. So just beware that is coming. That also means that what little we've done on the forum part of it, that will also be moving over to a new community over to that side too, because that part was actually hosted on our support tool, the one that I'm currently using. So just be aware that there's some changes that may come in place. Any tickets that are open right now will continue and be migrated over to the new tool, and we'll kind of go from there. I think that's pretty much what I needed to talk about as far as that goes. I just wanted to make you aware of it. And that also means that at some point in time, you may go to support.civision.com and actually see something like Martello Tech or Martello on the front page. It's going to be normal. There'll be also the Civision logo or something like that for a little while, but then that will kind of change. Civision will be a brand and not necessarily a company, is really what it kind of sounds like as we go forward. So the next users group section we actually haven't determined yet. We'll probably have one sometime around, if I was to guess, we would be either a February or a March timeframe. If you've got suggestions of a topic you would like for us to cover, please let us know. We kind of did a 10.2.2 just to make sure that we had a new users group session. Make sure you guys are still informed with stuff. Wanted to talk about the new management pack, but obviously the floor is yours as far as being able to have a topic. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for now. We'll kind of go from that point. If you've got any more ideas or anything else you would like us to cover, you can send an email to support@civision.com with suggestions. If you feel like there's something that we're lacking or would like to see, obviously you can send anything to support@civision.com, whether it's feedback on the user group sessions, whether it's suggestions for new topics or other topics you'd like to see. We'll kind of go from there. On that note, I wish everyone a good day. Hopefully your January, since this is the last day of January, was good. Wish you the best in February and the coming year. And thank you very much. We'll go from there.